All right, we're live. Let me just get set up here. If you guys are in the chat, uh, just say hey or what's up, and then we'll get started. All right, so if you guys saw my tweet from yesterday, someone just said, "Are you live streaming?" Yep, think I just tweeted that out. Yeah, we've got 10 people on here, so it looks like the tweet went out. If you guys saw my tweet earlier, I had some success yesterday. I don't know where. Let's see. Oh yeah, so here we are. So yeah, the stacks that I talked about yesterday mostly came through. Unfortunately, Colorado ended up having a huge night. I faded Colorado pretty much for the most part. And if they didn't have a huge night like they did, then I would have made quite a bit more money. But still a successful night with the Minnesota and Mets stacks and Toronto as well. So overall, pretty successful night. I entered the Fantasy Baseball World Championship qualifier. It was a $400 qualifier last night and finished fifth in that. Made some money, which was nice. I actually have a baseball tournament myself that weekend. It's just slow pitch, but so I haven't been trying to qualify for the Fantasy Baseball World Championship just because it's our playoffs that weekend. So I figure save some money trying to qualify possibly, and maybe throw a couple lineups into a couple qualifiers, but I'm not trying too hard. I'm going to save my money for the football one, which is going to have a much bigger first place prize. So entered one of those though and won some money, and then I did the $27 payoff pitch and did pretty well in that. It's pretty close to some elite lineups. If it wasn't for Colorado, I would have been up near the top, I think. So it looks like we've got lots of people online now. So I'll get into looking at the models for today. So I haven't done much research today. Just quickly looked at some of the pitchers and the slate that we have going on today. But the first thing that popped out to me was how crazy the pitching is tonight. We've got tons of aces out there. It looks like 6 pitchers that are in the 5 figures, and a lot of them are number one pitchers. Some of the best pitchers, some of the best fantasy pitchers are in tonight's slate. Fernandez, Syndergaard, Sale, Arrieta, Strasburg, Kluber. So it's going to be tough to figure out who you want to go with for pitching. And then we've also got a lot of high team totals again today, which means we've got some expensive hitters. So it's going to be tough to do a balance. You can either go with 2 expensive pitchers and then go cheap with your hitters, or you're going to have to find some value with the pitchers and go cheap find some value with the pitchers, go cheap with the batters. I'm just trying to read the chat here. What's the main thing you look at when picking a pitcher? I mainly go by the model here, and I like to look at, I weighted the strikeouts quite a bit in the model. So I just kind of look at the model. I like to look at strikeouts and recent performance. The Jeffrey says, great picks last night. Thanks, man. Hope you made a little bit of money. What's up, Jared? Is 2 stud pitcher day or stack bats day? So that's a tough call. You never really know what's going to work. You could go with 2 studs and then find some value hitters. And if you get the right value hitters, that could work out. Or you could stack some expensive bats and try to find 2 value pitchers that have pretty good or very good nights. And that's how you'd win a GPP. So it's tough to call. You can win GPPs both ways. So it's kind of just finding the right mixture of players. So there's no real right way to do it. You could probably win tonight doing one or the other. You just have to have the right players. How's Toronto looking for contrarian? They won't be contrarian tonight, but they are looking like a pretty good stack. Brandon says so close. Yeah. Wasn't too far off. A big payday yesterday. I think my best score was about 165, and the top scores were 190 in the big GPPs. All right. Yeah, if I ever pause in the middle of a live stream here, it's just probably because I'm reading the chat here in the comments. So let's get started. I'll take a look at the Vegas lines first and the implied team totals, which I like to do. So we've got Baltimore at 4.8. That's something to look at. The Angels even probably contrarian play at 4.7. I think it's Ubaldo Jimenez going for Baltimore. The Jays, again, 5.9. They've been raking lately. They're always a play at the Rogers Center, especially lately. They've got a lot of hot bats. Boston, same thing. They've been raking lately. I think they're going against Archer, but a couple of their hitters hit him well, so that might be something to look at. Going down, Texas, 5.5. And then again, we've got Coors Field effect here. The Rockies at 6.3 and the Phillies at 4.7. That's going to be another fade for me, I think. But I'll probably do what I did last night. I'll probably take one or two players from that game, one or two hitters, and mix it in with another stack. So the way I made my money last night was Minnesota Twins and New York Mets stacks, and then I also had like one or two Rockies in those stacks. Houston at 4.9 might be something to look at. The White Sox at 5.2. That looks pretty much it. So you want to look for the most part, I'm always looking for teams that are closer to 5 for their implied team total. And then if you want to go contrarian, you can go with teams that are around maybe 4.5 or so. So let's take a look at the lineups quickly, just see what's confirmed for the night. Someone said, are you liking Colorado hitters tonight? Yeah, again, I definitely think that they're a good play for cash games, but for GPPs, I think they're going to be really popular. Their implied team total is 6.3. So again, especially after last night's, was it 10 or 11 runs they got? I think they're going to be popular again. So again, I wouldn't be stacking the Rockies in GPPs personally. I would rather hope for them to have a bad game, maybe have one or two of the Rockies in my lineups, but I wouldn't stack them because I think a lot of people are going to be stacking them. So if you do stack them, you'd be going up against a lot of similar lineups. Okay, let's take a look at the lineups. We've got, my mouse is fucking up here. We've got a lot of lineups confirmed. Yeah, a ton of lineups confirmed, which is good for our building. It's just the late games, the 2 10 o'clock games where we're not going to have lineups to look at. But being a Friday night games, you'd think that they would have pretty close to their regular lineups in there. So it shouldn't be too big of a deal. So I won't be building my lineups for another probably hour and a half, but let's just take a look at some stacks and some pitchers. So let's start off with stacks. That's been working well for us lately. Someone asked, Jared asked, did you only have Minnesota and Mets stacks last night? And if so, how did you narrow all the stacks that you'd like to choose to 2 teams? How many lineups did I have? Had about 10 lineups in the $27 contest. And I believe I had about 6 Met stacks. Just when I started building my lineup, I started really like the Met stack. I probably had maybe 2, I think I had about 2, maybe 6 Met stacks, maybe 2 twin stacks, 2 or 3 twin stacks, a Toronto stack, and a Washington stack. So I kind of just go with one stack. Try to go with one stack that I like. So if I have a couple stacks that I like for the night, I'll just kind of narrow it down, go with my gut feel and pick one stack and go a little heavier with that. And then maybe the other stacks that I liked, maybe throw in 1 or 2 lineups with those. So it's tough to pick. It's kind of gut feel. If you have a couple stacks that you like equally, you kind of just got to go with your gut feel and make a little bit of a gamble. Let's take a look at these stacks here. So this is confirmed and projected. Of course, Colorado is coming up number 1. So again, I would be playing them if I was playing cash, but I won't be stacking Colorado for GPPs. I'm not going to say I won't play their hitters. I might have one or two of their guys in my lineups, but I won't do a full Colorado stack for GPPs. So moving down, Philly. So it's, again, Coors Field, but probably less popular than the Colorado stack. So that might be a decent stack there, the Phillies. Chicago White Sox, really like that stack, 2-6. A lot of correlation there. That could be a very solid stack. More Colorado. Boston was another team that they're very hot right now. I think they're going up against Archer. Yeah, they're going up against Chris Archer, but it's in Boston, and I think it's in Boston. Let me double check that. Yeah, it's in Boston. So Boston's always a good play at home. Same with the Jays. The Rangers, if they've got a good pitching matchup, they wouldn't be a bad play. Yeah, we've got Toronto up here, Texas, Boston. So those are probably the teams. I'll probably be fading Colorado. So I might want to look at the Phillies, the White Sox, the Red Sox, the Rangers, and the Blue Jays. Those would be the teams I would look at. And then if you want to be contrarian, you could check out someone like Baltimore right here. Their top stack here is the 1 through 5. So they are facing Shoemaker. Let's check on his game log. So he had been doing well up until his last start. He was throwing in a hitters-friendly ballpark in Boston, gave up 9 hits and 5 earned runs over 4 2/3 innings. And now he's going to Baltimore, which is a pretty hitters-friendly ballpark as well, with a good hitting team in Baltimore. So if you want to go contrarian, probably a pretty low-owned stack would be Baltimore 1 to 5. That might not be a bad play. And then you could get probably low ownership on St. Louis as well. Let's take a look at the pitchers for tonight. Jeremy says, thoughts on Tigers versus Blue Jays versus Cubs. So I think you mean trying to pick between one of those 3 stacks. Tigers versus Blue Jays versus Cubs. I would go with my favorite stack out of those 3 would be Blue Jays. I think they'll be a little higher owned than the other 2. But I think a lot of people are going to be owning Colorado hitters. So Blue Jays won't be too highly owned, maybe 20% roughly would be my guess for GPPs. So I think I would go with Blue Jays. Let's see the Cubbies here. Yeah, the Cubs implied team total is 4.3. I don't think I really like them too much. How are the stacks derived? Is it based on your model settings? Yeah, the stacks are the ratings added up. So these 5 hitters for Colorado would add up to 363.9 for their Fantasy Labs rating. That's how they get the stacks, and that's how they sort them. Someone said, are your lineups always stacks, or do you also make lineups with mixed players teams? So I pretty much always do stacks and GPPs just because of the correlation. I think you can have success doing not doing stacks, but you got to have all the right hitters. I like to stack usually 4 or 5 from a team, and then kind of hope that team just goes off and scores maybe 10, 12 runs in that game. Kind of worked with the Mets last night pretty well for me. Is there anything other than just stacking a team for a GPP lineup that you've had success with? So that's kind of the same question. I mostly do stacks. You can choose and pick players. I've had some success just choosing a lot of the high-rated batters in the Sports Geek model, and then just kind of hoping that those individual players have big nights themselves. Maybe all hit home runs or whatever. You can win a GPP that way, but I kind of like the correlation with the stacks. That's why I use stacks most of the time for GPPs. I find that getting the pitcher right is vital. Can you help us find a good cheap pitcher? All right, that's what we'll take a look at right now. So sorted by rating, you can see that the number 1 pitcher of the night is Jose Fernandez for the Sports Geek model. Most expensive, actually second most expensive on the night, $100 behind Chris Sale. So he'll definitely be in quite a few of my lineups, but it's going to be very tough to fit him in, especially with the stacks that I want. So we might have to try to find some value in a second here. Then we got Syndergaard, Sale, Arrieta, Strasburg, Kluber. So it's going to be very tough to know which one of these guys is going to be highest owned. But I don't think that's going to matter too much because I think it's going to be pretty spread out between these 6 guys. I think Jose Fernandez will probably be the highest owned, but that won't make me not take him. I'll still go with him because I don't think he'll be too highly owned, just for the fact that a lot of people are going to be spending up on bats as well. So we'll try to find a cheap pitcher. Kazmir 9,100, not very cheap, but might be a good option coming off a 35 DraftKings point night. John Gray at 69. So this is in Coors Field, so I'm not sure I really like that. Rough starts in 2 of his last 3, but you do see that he has put up over 20 DraftKings points, even 36 DraftKings point night, maybe 6 starts ago. So that would be a risk. He does rate high on the model, so if you want to go cheap, that could be a good risk to take. Someone says, I typically see you playing GPPs. Do you build cash lines and then go opposite of that for a good GPP line? That's not how I think of it. For GPPs, I'm kind of just looking for stacks, players, and pitchers that I think are going to be a bit lower owned and that have a good chance of going off for the night. I don't really think of going the opposite of cash lineups for GPPs. I more think of stacks and correlation and lower ownership. All right, so back to these pitchers here. Colin McHugh, 7,500. 3 of his last 4 starts have been pretty good. He's at home against Oakland. That could be a good cheap option for tonight, 7,500. Francisco Liriano, even though he's going against the Cubs tonight, I do think he's a decent play at 6,000. He does have the upside. He has been struggling quite a bit lately. But you can see he had a start against the Cardinals where he put up 23 DraftKings points. I don't know. That's a tough call there. With how much he's struggling, I'll probably stay away. But for GPPs, if you want to try to find a cheap guy, he could be a good risk to take. Chad Green for the Yankees against Cleveland. Looks like he's got a high strikeout rate. His last time out, let me see, 2Ks. Okay, it's got his hitting stats for some reason. Let me just check. Chad. Try to find his pitching stats here. So his last start in San Diego went 6 innings, gave up 3 hits, 1 earned run with 8 strikeouts. That looks like, and then I guess his other start was 4 innings. He gave up 6 runs, 4 of them earned with 5 strikeouts. So he does strike out a lot of hitters. So he has some good upside for sure. He's worth a look at 5,500, although he is in Cleveland against a good hot Cleveland Indians team. So again, another risk there. But if you want to go heavy with your hitters or go with some expensive hitters and then an expensive pitcher, you're going to need to find someone cheap. So you might want to take the risk on someone like Green or Liriano or maybe possibly John Gray in Coors Field. So those would be the cheap options I would look at. I don't think I would go any further down than that. I'd probably cut it off at Chad Green. So I guess for my cheap options would be Green, maybe McHugh, or John Gray. Those would probably be my cheap options. And then any of the pitchers in the 5-figure range, I would go with tonight. I think any of them could have a big game. So you just kind of got to get lucky and pick the right one. And then I would maybe try a GPP lineup with 2 elite pitchers and then try to fill in using the Sports Geek model with some cheap batters. So if you go to the batters, what I like to do is sometimes is go to the salary and sort it by salary. Find some cheap options that are ranking around 60 or higher. So you go with Justin Upton at 2,300. Scroll down, just kind of look for the darker green numbers. So you could go with McCann at 55. Molina 57. So Barney 59. That's kind of what I do if I'm going with very expensive pitchers and I want to try to find some cheap hitters. sometimes I'll just rank it by or sort it by salary and find some cheap options that way. Just let's try to build a lineup here with 2 expensive pitchers. So if we went with the 2 top-rated pitchers in the Sports Geek model, that leaves us about 3,200 for our hitters. So that's not bad, actually. You could go through and find, let's see if we can find a stack here that's somewhat cheap. So if we went with the White Sox stack, Jose Fernandez and Syndergaard, that leaves us with 2,700 for our other players. So you could make something like that work. You could get a full stack in and then have 2 expensive pitchers and build from there. Let's clear that out. Let's try to find a cheaper stack. I don't know if Baltimore is going to be any cheaper. No, probably not. What if you went with someone like this Tampa Bay stack? So you could get a Tampa Bay stack going with the top 2. Oh no, they're more expensive than Chicago. Yeah, I guess the White Sox are looking like a pretty good team to stack tonight. Any other questions, guys? I'll go over my stacks again here in a second that I like. Brad says he's found success with picking his favorite stack, then locking in his favorite pitcher, then filling in with value, high-rated individuals from there. Yeah, if you've watched my videos that I've done for the past week, that's kind of exactly how I make my lineups usually. I'll find a stack that I like. I'll load that in. I'll load my top pitcher in that I want to include in that lineup, and then I'll kind of build in from there, find another pitcher depending on the salary that's remaining, and then fill in the other positions with some high-rated players that are cheap enough to fit into the lineup. T-Bird J92 says, what do you think about Chad Green as a cheap pitching option? Yeah, so if you were on the stream a second ago, I mentioned him. He's one of the 3 that I would look at. I definitely think he's got the potential. He's got a high K rate, so he could be a good option tonight. Again, you're taking a risk, but that would be a risk I'd be willing to take in GPPs. Can you look at some positions for high-rated players? Well, if we sort by rating here, you can see, I'm not sure what you mean there. Do you want me to look at position by position? Quickly go through them. So catcher, we got Rupp and Perez. First baseman, Abreu, Davis. Profar, Pedroia for second. Third base, Arenado, Donaldson. Shortstop, Story, Diaz. Outfielders, Cargo, Herrera, Blackman, Melky Cabrera. So a lot of Phillies, a lot of Colorado Rockies and Phillies in Coors Field. I'll try to be fading that as much as I can, but I probably will have 1 or 2 Coors Field players in most of my lineups for sure. Just like last night, similar strategy for me. Random Roamer, thanks for your videos, much appreciated. Thanks, man. I'm glad you're enjoying them. And other than that, guys, I think I'm going to sign off and kind of start building my own lineups and make dinner before the games get going. So quickly, just go over the stacks I like again. Baltimore would be a good option. The Blue Jays, the Red Sox, and even Tampa Bay and Boston might be a good contrarian stack. The Rangers at 5.5. The Astros at 4.9. The White Sox at 5.2. And then, of course, we've got Coors Field. Either of those teams are in play, but for GPPs, personally, you guys know my strategy. I like to go with lower owned stacks. So I will be fading. I won't be doing any stacks with the Rockies, but I wouldn't mind doing a stack and then throwing in maybe 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 batters from Coors Field. So that's it for me, guys. Hope this video kind of helped you guys, and hopefully some of those stacks come through tonight and some of those pitchers near the top of the Sports Geek model have big nights. And hopefully you win some money here on Friday night. Cheers.